no politician, really no person ever asked me how to shoot them or not.
Right.
Now, there were people who would say, I'm a little hard of hearing in this one ear. Can you speak to me from this side? Which is absolutely acceptable. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, but I encourage you to watch.
I wonder if you are thinking of this from more of that musical performer, which is what you are.
No, not at all. I am speaking from someone who is media savvy, who says, I know what my flaws are. And if I don't have to walk at a certain angle, if I don't have to show a certain side of me, whether it's a different profile, it's just like the women on the red carpet for the Oscars.
Right. Well,
they're going to cross their legs a certain way or look over their shoulder a certain way, whatever shows them in the best light.
Oh, and I tell my clients that all the time.
Right.
But this is where you have to have rapport with someone in a TV outlet to even do that. Because if you say that, that's going to make news too. I mean, I would tweet that. If Mitt Romney asked me to shoot him only from one angle, I would tweet that. And speaking of my Twitter feed, I noticed, Jearlyn, because I've been tweeting about you today, someone from Nebraska said, oh, we don't get that station here. I'm bummed I can't listen to you. So I just responded to him and said, oh, you can listen live online at WCCOradio.com.
That's right.
So here is where this is a good use of the Twitter feed. So we're bringing more listeners to CCO, and we're responding to Drew in Nebraska, who was worried he couldn't listen to us.
Well, thank you, Drew.
And
I hope that he logs on.
We love our online listeners.
We do.
Thank you.
They're very active. We appreciate it. Well, I have to tell you, Roshini, I really noticed on television in the beginning we used to see Romney walking all the time, and he has an interesting clip to his walk.
Yes.
And, it was just like FDR. FDR didn't want anyone to shoot him except from the waist up. He didn't want you to see the chair.
Right.
Right? So if we could do it then, that was a long time ago.
Well, I think the politicians' opinions and feelings were more catered to back then.
Oh, absolutely. If they had an affair or something, they didn't write about that.
What I'm thinking
until
about,
they were out of office.
I'm just thinking about these television producers, directors, anyone connected to television, and I just don't see them taking, the wish list or the laundry list from the politicians.
Talk about.
But I will do some research on that.
Don't forget, we still had in between there. We had Howard Dean and the Scream.
We
had Jimmy Carter and his rabbit incident in the boat.
Absolutely.
George Bush and his watch this drive moment. So there certainly are incidents you can point to between FDR and present day where the media or somebody with a camera caught something, and when they get the good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They share
it goes viral.
Oh, of course it does. But then you also have examples of our current President Obama who uses a teleprompter. Now, since teleprompters have come into being, presidents have used them.
Right.
But they never shoot a picture of the teleprompter whenever they're speaking. You only see the president's face framed in the TV.
Exactly.
Now that President Obama is in office, you see the teleprompter often. Not just sometimes.
Yeah.
Often.
And every president has used that.
Now, that's strategic.
But every president has used that. I mean, every president has used it, so I don't know why.
But how many times? Exactly.
I have seen it before in other shots, Jearlyn, quite honestly.
Of other presidents?
Yes, I have. I don't know if it's excessive. We'd have to do some kind of survey. But I have seen it. I just think it's because Obama is pretty smooth when he does those talks. Any of his critics want to point that out, so they may.
I think Mitt Romney is smooth
that.
when he delivers his.
And he's
on a
using prompter
too. Absolutely,
yeah, he's using prompter.
Well, I disagree with you on that, but we will agree to disagree.
Oh, you believe that they're giving them their little wish list?
I think that there are some wish lists and some demands that are being met. Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you this. And Chris, I'm curious what you think, too, as a man. One of the things that seems to be undercovered to me is this Callista, the wife of Newt Gingrich.
Yes.
And she was a mistress, then became his third wife. If you're truly trying to get the faithful fundamentalist voters in the Republican Party, that's something that could have been exploited definitely by a lot of reporters. It doesn't, I mean, I'm not saying I want it to be exploited, but if you're really trying to get that vote, you're not the poster child for family values,
right.
Newt Gingrich and Callista Gingrich. So I'm curious what you two think. Do you feel like it's been covered? Did you want it to be covered? Do you think media just shies away from those kinds of things because everybody, people have affairs, that kind of thing?
I think he pulled a Governor Ventura. Governor Ventura, before he ran for governor, wrote a book that spoke of all of his transgressions beautifully.
Okay.
There would be no question about it. Newt Gingrich came forward at the very beginning. He said, look, these are the things I have sinned, and I'm asking for forgiveness.
Okay.
Yes, I married my mistress, and I'm not proud of some of the things I've done, but she and I have been together now for X amount of years. We're very happy. This is the woman I'm going to, die with. I mean, this is the love of my life. So now I'm done, and please forgive me. Once you've done that before the process of running for president ever begins, then that just kind of cancels everything out. Because what are you going to say now? Mm-hmm. Now, if he hadn't done that and still tried to espouse him or put himself up as the...
a la Herman Cain.
There you go. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Perfect
Who kept
example.
denying. And it's just hard to believe that none of those accusations, have no merit whatsoever, according to Herman Cain.
And it's one thing to have one, come forward. And when you have 10 like Tiger, you kind of go, uh-oh. You are so busted.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never, from my perspective, I've never had a great deal of interest in what they do behind closed doors. And I mean, I know, when Bill Clinton and that whole thing came down, and granted, Newt Gingrich was really the catalyst behind that whole thing.
Absolutely.
But, I was in high school. I was tuned into the political spectrum, but, I just, at that moment, it seemed out of bounds. Mm-hmm. And I think that stands, no matter who it is, no matter, if it's a finger-pointing game, I just don't, I'm not interested. Even the Herman Cain thing. Now, the more dishonest he got, it kind of put a sour taste in my mouth.
Well, because he's asking us to be our president. He's asking us for our vote. And if you're going to lie, lying is lying, regardless of what the content is.
Right.
And that's what's really tough about these kinds of situations, because they bring out, and think of John Edwards, with his child out of wedlock.
It's how bad the lie is.
I think it's how you would handle these situations as a leader. I think of my boss or any boss I've ever had, and if I went to them and said, "Hey, I saw you at the bar last night with another woman," they'd probably look at me and say, "That's none of your business," and stay out of it. And as an employee, that's my job. Now, granted, the President of the United States is an employee of ours, but I want him to be a leader. And not that Newt Gingrich is necessarily saying, "It's my business, stay out of it," but he's saying, "I'm not talking about it. You know the story, it's out there. Let's talk about politics." I think this is a time in this country where we should be focusing on that. If you want reality TV, there's plenty to go watch. But when it comes to the election of our leader, and who would ultimately be, the leader of the free world, they better be qualified to do the job.
So what does it say then about Americans to the rest of the world when we consider putting in office someone like a Newt Gingrich who has a seedy background,
the Europeans don't care at all.
The Europeans don't, but there are other countries that do.
The French openly have the mistress family.
They don't care, but there are other countries that do.
Absolutely. It really comes two parts. There's the lie, so there's the honesty quotient, but then there's also the other part that you said. Newt came out in the beginning, and he did the mea culpa. He asked for forgiveness, and now who of us can throw a stone? Because we've all sinned, right? In some way or another. So that was a smart PR move.
It was a smart
You better
PR
believe
move.
that was completely PR. So he did that. Not everybody's smart enough to do that if they have things like that are going to come out, because in this cycle of never-ending news, truthful stories and not truthful stories, someone's going to find it if it's happened.
And it doesn't mean that he is exempt from criticism, because people come at him at a different angle now. They say, okay, we understand that you sinned. However, when President Clinton was sinning, you were at the forefront of morality. You were the example. You were supposedly the poster child for morality. That turns it around on its head.
Yes,
right?
It does.
That's different. So in that, they've used that and have been successful using that against him.
But is there a new standard where kind of the standard practice is, the story, it's out there, I'm not going to talk about it, because we just saw it with Amy Koch as well, where, like you said, Jearlyn, she was kind of, in the fore when it came to some of this, family values kind of stuff. We found out, she had some indiscretions. She stepped down. Now it sounds like she might be getting back into the fray, and she's just not going to talk about it. Right. And it seems to be working. It's working for Newt. There's not a lot of backlash.
Again, the honesty, though, was there from the beginning once it was found out, correct?
Yeah.
So
she kind of came out and said, this is happening, I'm stepping down. So, I think...
And I thought it was an interesting move that she stepped down. Actually.
Okay, so now let's talk about corporations for a moment, because corporations communicate quite a bit as well.
Absolutely.
Let's look at the organization Susan G. Komen, who decided to defund Planned Parenthood. And in that mix of how that whole story unfolded, first of all, I think it was an absolute disaster.
Yes, it
of
was.
How the whole thing happened. What were they communicating, and where did they go wrong with it? Because now that more facts have come out about how much they were really paying for, how much they were really funding them, and only paid for 34,000 of the 800,000 mammograms that they did, that sort of thing.
And now it's changed. It also changed. They are going to fund.
They are. Well,
Planned
yeah.
Parenthood, right?
They'll be able to apply and they'll fund them. So, what did that say about Susan G. Komen?
Well,
organization.
A little bit of hypocrisy, because they are an organization that has been very successful in raising funds
Extremely.
and bringing awareness to breast cancer. And health experts will tell you breast cancer is not the number one killer of women. But if you looked at the comparative analysis of who gets the airtime, the ad time, the free media time on stations like CCO and other TV stations and radio, Komen gets a lot. They get a lot because they've got a good, strong PR machine going. So this really is this is beyond a blemish.
Yeah.
Is it as big of a pockmark as a pockmark? Probably, because you've got these two brands that are supposed to be dedicated primarily to women, but both also serve men. And all of a sudden they look like they're at odds. Yeah. So it was a really tough day for the true women's movement in this country.
Exactly.
That's really
what I was looking for.
Yeah.
It awakened the beast.
Exactly. It did.
And I don't think they expected that. So what we communicate from an organization, an agency, a small business, a corporation is as important as what we are.
You are only as good as your own integrity and ethics. And when you have strong ethics and impeccable integrity, it doesn't mean you're faultless. Like you're human, you'll make mistakes. But if you have those as the guideposts, then when you communicate, you're at least trying to go for honest communication. Okay? Whether it's social media or speaking or writing.
We got to take a break in just a moment. But when we come back, I want to talk about ethics, because there was a time you didn't have to teach classes on ethics. Okay? Can we just talk about that in America? There was a time you did not have to teach leadership and ethics and all of that. People were raised a certain way, or you believed a certain way. But now it is absolutely critical that you teach ethics in college and even in high school now. They're even starting to add those classes in high school. So we're going to take a break. Roshini Rajkumar is our guest. Roshini, why don't you give them your website if they want more information?
Well, the easiest way to find us is at communicatethatbook.com. That's our website. My company is Roshini Performance Group, and I love coming in to be with my friends at WCCO Radio, and we're talking about all these different messages and subtextual messages that every kind of communication that you do in any given week, what they really mean.
Which you will find on her website. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment.